This is really ego. This comes from the ego. And when I really stopped to ask myself, what am I doing by keeping my options open? I realized what I was doing was living somebody else's best life, right? And one thing I've learned is that we don't actually build our career like the old way of looking at it was have a goal and then work toward your goal.
Yeah.
Now I think the science is showing we're better if we have a general direction, but experiment. You can plant a question in your mind, like, who am I? What matters to me? What feels important to me right now? And just see what comes without any pressure on yourself, right? I think as human beings, we over-index on what we're going to lose. And many people said to me, be careful, you're not going to be able to make it go back.
Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of Pharma Minds podcast, where we explore the journeys and insights of leaders in the pharma and healthcare world. And today I'm honored to speak with Margaret Dean. Hello, Margaret.
Hello, Natalie.
I'm really happy to have you here. Margaret, she's a seasoned leader. She has a huge background, huge experience in leadership in pharma. And why I wanted her to be here today, it's because she's known for having identified and developed dozens of talents here in pharma world. And yes, I think I was asking for the secret recipe for this. I was wondering what's behind this. Yes, Margaret, if you wish to.
Wow. Well, I'm honored and flattered already. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to have a conversation about that. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, lots of talents in the pharma industry will be happy to have your internal
I don't know, but let's see.
Yes, let's see. Yes, in you just a bit to present your career. Mm-hmm. You've worked in commercials and then you switched in HR at global level, executive level, mainly at Novartis, if I'm right.
Yep.
Yes, you've lived in the different countries too. You're American.
Do you want me to recap a little bit for you?
Yes, if you want to.
Yeah, I'll try to do it in a nutshell. When you get to my age, there's lots of ground to cover. But in a nutshell, I am American by nationality.
Yeah.
But actually, I grew up all over the world, mainly in Europe, actually. But so I'm a little bit more of an international American than most. And I found my way to pharma when, after I did my MBA, I started actually with Sharing Plow in the 90s. And I was at Novartis for many, many years. And I started my career in marketing, actually, and also did sales and global marketing, country marketing, then transitioned into general management, and then made a kind of traditional move out of commercial into people and organization, or HR, when I was offered an opportunity to lead HR for the oncology division at Novartis. So that's in a nutshell.
Yes, it was in your second half of your career. You decided to go to, yes.
Exactly. And now 2 years ago, I left Novartis, and now I started my own coaching and consulting company, and I've been doing that for a few years now.
Cool. Yes. Then, we start a bit about understanding, maybe your career, the choices you've made.
Sure.
And you started, you say, in commercials. Why that? What did you want to do?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's only in looking back that I can kind of identify some of these drivers and red threads. Because to be honest with you, at the beginning of my career, I didn't really have a plan in mind. I actually came into pharma quite by almost accident. I had, I mentioned before that I grew up internationally, and I knew I always wanted to have an international career and work on the big problems in the world. I actually did my undergraduate studies in international relations, and I was hoping to go into the foreign service. But I graduated from university at a time where there was a recession, and I ended up just getting a job just to find a job in banking, and spent a few years in international banking.
Okay.
And realized that I didn't like working only with value creation with money. And I wanted to work for a company that did something important for the world, that contributed in a more positive way in my mind. So that's how I ended up in pharma without a scientific background. And the driver was really, I get to work in an international setting. My first job was in Germany. I get to work on really interesting scientific, advances, innovation that make a difference for people in cancer. I started in oncology, so that was attractive. And, I get to work with really smart people and learn and grow and develop myself. So that was really my motivation. And with my MBA, commercial was the logical entry point.
Okay. And then you started to understand you had something to do with leadership, with developing talents, with leading.
Yeah. That was an interesting evolution, because when I started early in my career, I was super achievement oriented. I've learned a lot about myself over the years, and I've identified that I have a real strong achievement drive. And I also have a strong learning drive. I love learning new things, a lot of curiosity. And it was only with time that I recognized that we don't achieve by ourselves. We achieve with other people. And I started to really recognize the value of developing, investing in talent and developing talent and really mentoring people. And it brought me so much joy to see how people could, really unlock hidden potential in themselves and bring their gifts to the world. And that just became something over time that I became really more and more passionate about as an impact that I could have.
Okay. Then you weren't choosing the people with a CV and their experiences. You tried to understand where their strengths were, or
yeah, exactly, and where their potential was.
Yes. What?
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
I'm curious.
I'm a huge believer in hiring for potential and stretching people. The reason I coach people is because I think people have so much potential, and part of it is just the opportunities they're given. But the other part of the equation is, how do you understand where they have limiting beliefs and assumptions that hold them back? We call them self-sabotaging beliefs. And we all have them, right? Because these are things that protected us in childhood. And actually, that's an intelligent response to how to, as we grow, how to protect ourselves, how to achieve. But then at some point, they can also hold us back. So I started to learn a lot about help to go deeper with people. And so to hire people that had an openness for wanting to grow and learn and unlock their potential and stretch them into roles and help them to really build their confidence.
Do you have any example of someone you tried to go deeper and you could make something different of his career or something?
Yeah, no, I can think of someone right now who, had a huge amount of potential, but it was holding themselves back. And their issue. I mean, we all have these protective tendencies. You could also call them gifts, because they help us, right? But this person had a tendency to constantly challenge authority and to speak up in places where his opinion couldn't be heard well. So the question was how to bring all that creative energy and channel it in a way that it could be received by senior people or stakeholders, like interaction with stakeholders. I think sometimes we tend to want to bring our voice, but we don't often put ourselves in the shoes of the other person in terms of what do they want out of this? What's the win-win? So that would just be an example of helping people see that with self-awareness, that even though their intention was good, the impact they were having was actually shutting the other person down. And this was a pattern that I would see constantly with this person that was holding them back, right? It was going to be career limiting.
Okay, and it's funny how you say someone who's speaking up it's a way to be creative.
Yeah. Because you're bringing your creative energy, your opinions, your ideas, and that's great. You want that, right? But you also want to bring them in a way that people can receive them and hear them.
And I was wondering, is there a special moment when you decided to go from commercials to HR?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I guess the first thing I will say is there was a longing or a tugging at my heartstrings to go in this direction before I probably even recognized it as a decision to pivot career.
Okay.
And that happened when I was in the UK. I was the general manager of the oncology business unit there. And I decided to get my coaching certification as a side project. Okay. And I don't know why. I thought in my, my conscious brain was telling me, oh, this will make you better at your job. And as you're becoming a more senior leader, it's more about coaching others. And it's less about giving advice. Coaching is really about posing the right questions and helping people to think. And I didn't feel so skilled at that. I felt like I could learn more.
Okay.
So I went back. So I went at nighttime and on the weekends and became an ICF certified coach and used that in my work. But then suddenly I realized, wow, this is actually a calling. This is calling to me to explore this part of myself. And the same thing happened with I got more and more involved with creating cultures where people could thrive, and it coincided with a time at Novartis where we were doing a very big global culture change initiative. So I volunteered to help with that, and I became kind of known for being someone that was passionate about people, culture, talent development. So these topics just became more and more where I was utilizing my creative energies. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I was asked if I'd be interested in taking on this role in HR, and I never thought that could even be possible to make a move like that. But someone else believed in me and saw my potential to do something very different and use my creative gifts in a new way. And I just said, yeah, why not? Let's try it. Yeah. And that's been a through line or a red thread in my career, I would say as well, is have sort of a general vision, a general direction, be clear about what's important to you, what you love, but hold it loosely and see what emerges, see what kinds of opportunities come up.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting in your foot when you were asking this decision. Didn't you say yourself, okay, I'm losing something to go out of the commercials?
Yes, Natalie, that is a very, very good question. Yeah. Actually, early on in my life, I lived by loss aversion. This is what you're referring to. We have, I think, as human beings, we over-index on what we're going to lose. I remember throughout my early, even mid-career, thinking, I have to keep my options open. Yeah. If I move out of the commercial career path, I'm going to signal to people I'm not really serious.
Yes.
This GM or commercial leader pathway is the most important one there is. But this is really ego. This comes from the ego. And when I really stopped to ask myself, what am I doing by keeping my options open? I realized what I was doing was living somebody else's best life, right? So this part of my career also coincided with deep personal reflection journey, which I can tell you more about later. But the gist of it is the real lesson or learning from that was that I need to spend more time asking myself what I want in my life and my career. And when I really did that deep self-inquiry work, the answer was, this is really where I want to bring my gifts. And so there was more of a sense of, I'm gonna let that go, and I'm not gonna live my life. And many people said to me, be careful, you're not going to be able to make it go back. You're letting, but you know what? I'm very proud of the fact that I finally sort of let that go and just, I did it, and I never look back. And I'm very happy in this field that I'm in.
And because you were not driven by the fears, or you let something, different arrive, and you were open to accept something new.
Yeah, I think
to imagine or to create something new.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's an interesting question. What was the catalyst for letting that go? And I think you're right. I think there was, this piece around what am I fearing? Being willing to confront the fears, being able to see them for what they are and challenge the beliefs. So all of the things I coach others to do now, I had to go through myself. And by the way, I had good coaches, right? I was really fortunate to work for a company and a leader who invested also in coaching for me. Yeah. And that was so valuable in helping me to go deeper into my own self-inquiry process.
And I'm curious, but which age were you when you decided to ask yourself more and more questions?
Self-inquiry? Yeah. I would say I was in my 30s, maybe my mid-30s. Yeah. I remember going on this mentoring weekend for, we had, back then we used to have these, now I don't think they would do it on the weekend, but back then our senior leaders would select some people to go on a mentoring retreat, and we worked with coaches. And that kind of catalyzed it. So it wasn't an impetus that came from me. It came more from that. But then once I started on that pathway, I started to do things like I became a yoga teacher. I started to start to learn meditation. And this is a path of it's really a path of self-discovery and self-awareness. Mm-hmm. So those two things kind of came together in my life and put me on this path of really this searching, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes, and when you also, make a pivot in your career, you also decide to go deep in somewhere you don't know and to explore something and to also give a chance to something different and admit that you're not I've made the wrong choice, but admit that you want something different.
Yeah,
and
I think that's right.
You will find something which is fulfilling you, maybe.
And I think also what you're speaking to is experimentation, right? Now in my current work that I do, I often work with leaders in going through career transition, right? And I've studied a lot in this area. And one thing I've learned is that we don't actually build our career like the old way of looking at it was have a goal and then work toward your goal.
Yeah.
Now I think the science is showing we're better if we have a general direction, but experiment. So it's not about planning, it's about building by doing. So I think if I look back on my life, those were the times when I learned and grew the most, was when I had sort of a general sense, but said, I'm going to try it. Okay. If I don't like it, I change. So I think there's this sort of ease that comes from, you know what, I don't have to put so much pressure on myself to make the right decision. Many people come to me and say, I'm facing a decision in my career. I can do this or I can do that. Yes. Which one should I do? And the first thing is, I can't decide for you which one you do. I can help you think through it, but you know which one you can do. And the second part is it's probably not about making the right decision. It's about making a decision, and then how do you get the most out of that path that you choose, and how do you then, realize when that's not the path to take another path. So in life and in career now, I think we benefit when we develop the skills to pivot, to say, I try this, I experiment. If I love it and it works and is great, wonderful. If I don't, I can change and do something else, because we have all of us so many different possible selves and creative gifts, and they can be expressed in so many different ways, right? So there's no right or wrong in this.
And then you explain, you help the others to limit their risk by saying, okay, you can try something and you can develop skills, and whatever the ending of the story is, you will have something in the end.
Yeah,
you won't lose a few years.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it comes from not looking at life as a destination. It's a journey, right? So everything we do is a way to like learn something new that becomes part of ourselves. Now, that's not to say we can't make choices. Like me, when I went into banking early in my career, I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong, it shaped me, but that was not for me. But I learned what I didn't like about that. So I think every experience gives us in some way something we can take with us, either as experience or as information about what we're good at, not good at, what we like, don't like. And that's the beauty of life, is we get to, experiment and try. That's at least how I went through my career.
Yes, okay. Yes. Beauty or richness of life. Because I have in mind a CEO in a tech company who sold it billions, and afterwards saying, "Okay, I don't know what to do. Yeah, don't have any purpose. The purpose was driving my company and working on it." But yeah.
And the question you always have to ask is, why did they create the company? What impact were they trying to have in the world and on society? And if we're driven by impact, we can always find another way to bring our talents in service of having impact, right? And if we're led by that, first of all, we let go of a lot of these fears that hold us back, because it becomes less about protecting our status and our ego and more about, okay, so what can I do next to bring impact in the world, to serve others? And these CEOs, right? Especially if you get to success quite early,
yes, rapidly,
then it becomes very easy to identify with your title of CEO. Again, it's our ego saying status, right? And instead, we can say, "Wow, I brought that to the world. Now I can bring something else to the world," right? And find a new way to bring a new part of my identity.
Yes. I'm going, I would like to talk now about ego, because I think it's, if you have a title somewhere on your face and you want to keep it and you want to don't go backwards, or how do you see it?
Yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, there's so many ways of looking at this, because I've supported many people recently going through restructurings. Let's face it, the pharma industry has been disrupted. Many people are questioning, should I leave in order to preserve my, the status and title and salary and go somewhere else? If I stay and accept a lower position, do I dilute my value? And I think these are all legitimate concerns and questions. And I'm not going to say that's not important and shouldn't factor into our decision making, right? We worked hard to get where we did, right? So it's hard to give those things up. I get that. On the other hand, it can also be a prison of our own making, because our ego is the one saying, what will it look like to others if I, or how do I build back up? And the question is really, again, coming back to what's going to make me happy and fulfilled, right? If I stay here and take this other role, am I going to be happy doing that? If not, then let go of the fear of not having another job, leave, and take advantage of the time between roles to really do this deeper self-reflection work, because I'm sure some other facet of yourself that you have kept kind of hidden or not used will come forth, and you'll find some other ways to express your gifts. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is to say, no, I really, really worked hard. I want to become a CEO. I want to run a company or whatever, and then go somewhere else where maybe it's a smaller place, but you have more scope and more growth opportunity. But my advice would be, don't cling to it too tightly, because in this disruptive world, right? We have to learn to, again, iterate, experiment. If it doesn't work out, do the next thing. Because this illusion that it's like in the old days where, many people go into pharma because it's a very safe, kind of structured, and those days are over, right? So
yes, and
I think
it's interesting what you say about exploring, because even if someone is safe company or secure place, yes, you could advise to go somewhere when they can explore, where they can explore, when they can build something bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, because first of all, safety is an illusion, right? Especially in the world we're in now. Anything can be disrupted, anything can happen. So I think what's important is to develop the resilience and the skill set to cope with the change, the complexity, and the adaptability. This is also where maturity and development come in, right? I work a lot in what's called adult development, and a lot of this is about growing our capacity to handle this complexity and change and uncertainty, and because it's not easy, right? But so there's a lot of self-capacity that we need to build to be able to see challenges as opportunities, to see really tough situations as fuel for our own growth and development, right? It's not an easy path.
Yes, and it means also leave space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, leave space to be able to develop your resilience. If not, you can't.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, cultivation of space is something I was really bad at in my life and career. I was always doing, and it wasn't until I found yoga that I learned the value of really slowing down and reflecting, because it's a practice. It takes time, but it's only in that space, that slowing down, that reflection, that we can actually integrate what we're learning, that we can understand what we really care about, what we want, what we're good at. It doesn't just, people say, well, I don't know. Well, have you taken the time to really...
I don't know what to do, but what I want to do, for example.
Yeah, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I should... Well, maybe start by just taking the time to, go into nature. Go on a retreat. Go spend time by yourself in stillness and journal, do some journaling. Every morning I try to take 3 minutes and do some journaling, and that really helps to get the subconscious thoughts that are there to actually bubble up to the surface.
Yes, and then starting to have new ideas and wanting new connections and wanting new, I don't know, how do you help them to work?
Yeah, so I think it's about...
Because it's maybe like a tutorial for people who are in front of their empty paper. How can I start? And
yeah, it's a tough one. I remember when I first started doing this kind of work and journaling, it's uncomfortable. Just sitting in stillness is uncomfortable if you're not used to it. Our nervous system is so dysregulated because of the speed of the world we live in. So simply being aware of the fact that we have a dysregulated nervous system, and we can do simple things like deep breathing to shift from parasympathetic, which is our activated fight, flight, freeze, to, from our sympathetic to our parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest. So breathing techniques. You can just sit there for 3 minutes a day in the beginning and just practice sitting in stillness. And trust me, over time, you build this practice, then the white page, all of a sudden, you start to have things springing up, like ideas, thoughts.
Yes.
They're not necessarily fully formed sentences, right? But you can ask yourself questions. You can plant a question in your mind, like, who am I? What matters to me? What feels important to me right now? And just see what comes without any pressure on yourself, right? That's how I started doing it. And over time, it becomes a practice. Even just gratitude journaling helps, too, to cultivate the ability to sit and reflect and say, what's something good that happened to me today? What was I grateful for, These kinds of things are fairly easy to do if you start small.
Yes, okay. And for people who want to, I don't know, make like you did, make a pivot in their career, how do you consider it? How do you help people to go step by step to build another?
Build that? Yeah.
Yes, build another, I don't know.
That's a great question.
Not project or at least new ideal.
Yeah. So I work with people in career transition in a couple different ways. So I love working in groups. I have a group coaching process that I lead because I think people can benefit so much from bouncing their ideas and thoughts with others in the similar situation. So that's the first thing I would say. It's not about what I do. It's how to create the environment where people can do this kind of thinking. But then the second thing I would say is I use a combination of inner reflection, like what is the transition happening in my life and what needs to let go and what's coming in, and it's inner work. But then I also have some external support processes and actual how do I do this and take this into the world to test it. And so that part I've used a lot of the work of people like Bill. There's a person named Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, these co-authors. We can put it in the notes. They've written a book called Designing Your Life, and they have a whole design thinking approach to how we take our potential ideas, hypotheses, concepts into the world and test them. You know, how we build our network to go out there and talk to people that are doing what we want to do. So there's a whole process that we use to sort of develop possible selves and take them into the world. Again, this is the work not just of the design thinking, but also there's a woman named Herminia Ibarra, who is a professor at INSEAD, who's written a book called Working Identity. And this is full of the research from the last 20 years around what I was referring to before, around how we build our way forward and explore possible selves and experiment. So it's putting the traditional way of thinking about this on its head, turning it upside down, right? We don't first think about what it is I want and then put it into the world. Rather, we create some rough ideas, test, experiment, so it's more like a design thinking approach.
For your life.
For your life. And you can do this, you can repeat this, right? Because we're going to live 100+ years. We need to think about our career now in chapters and think about our identity in, I think, a little bit more of a fluid way, right? So it's not this is our identity, but rather how do we take what's important to us, our values, our gifts, and find different ways to express them as things in our life change, right? The things in my life now when I'm in my 50s are very different than what it was in my 30s, right? My kids are now at university. I have time to do, and also the phases we go through in our own development, different things become important to us. So we have to listen to those voices.
Yes.
And pull on that little thread and see where it takes us.
Yes, I have so many ideas in mind because I see, you add also some drive to the people because they need to be aware of every signals who said, you need to add this to your priorities.
Yeah.
And constantly adding and updating actually what you...
Yeah, you need to find time to invest in yourself to do this work is also the thing, right? When many people don't take the time to slow down. We live in this world where it's all about productivity and efficiency. What have so slowing down to do deep, it feels luxurious. The first challenge I have to overcome with the group in career coaching is for them to feel okay with investing this time in themselves and not going from one job to the next, right? Many of us go from one job, we leave on Friday, and Monday we start to the next one. And it's kind of counter or cultural or counter to our conditioning to actually slow down to do this kind of...
Yes, but we all see that we have the technology who helps us to go faster and faster on every tasks. And at which moment do we decide to invest on ourselves? And
it's hard. It sounds like it's easy to say, but it's much harder to actually do it. Yeah, especially with all the pressures
Yes,
from
yes, on the
outside us as
system,
well.
yeah.
That's why I believe in doing the work I do, because people need, I think they also need people
Yes,
like me who've
safe.
been through a career and to say it's okay. You can still, you're not giving anything up by doing this.
Yes, it was my question also
Yeah.
okay, we're not talking about this just to, yes, have this bizarre conversation. I think it's more because I personally feel it's a way to perform.
Absolutely. I think
future.
that's such a good point. This is not about letting go of achievement and performance.
Or
this
to
is
chill
about
or to,
enabling it, right? But in a more sustainable way. Because if we don't
and I would
do
say
that,
also, yes, sustainable and precise and impactful to the world also.
Intention.
Yeah,
we
intention,
bring when we slow down, we bring more intention to where we put our energy, and because otherwise we're just running around thinking we're busy and having impact, but we're really not having impact. We're just busy, right?
Yes, and it's also about the uniqueness of everyone also, because if you develop really day after day your uniqueness or what you want to be, you will differentiate from others faster.
Yes, that's a great point. And I think you're speaking also to authenticity, right? This is a journey of finding what is authentically what you want to bring to the world, what gifts you have. And as you said, it's a more targeted, and it can change, but in the moment, it's like this focus of your creative impulse and your gifts and your energy on something that matters to you. And that is, I think, a combination. You'll be successful in whatever you're doing when you bring that, it's that flow state that you can get into when you're get that sweet spot of bringing what you love, what you're good at, and what's important to you all together into one thing.
Yes, it's a matter of alignment and yes, really deep, Margaret. And do you see also some questions from women who also maybe see these problematics more, I don't know if it's intense or more difficult to address also?
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole podcast about, the unique challenges we face as women at working. But since we've been talking about identity, I think one of the challenges we face as women is that we play many different roles in society, right? And several of the women I'm coaching right now are grappling with this tension between, the career drivers, caring for older parents, that falls very much on women, right? The children, that I think often as women, we can be quite perfectionistic and set a very high bar for ourselves. We want to be really good at everything. We want to have it all working perfectly, and we want our house to be in order and this. And I think this is just unrealistic. So often, I think for me, it's about helping women to, first of all, clarify what they want, what's important to them, not just being pulled in every direction by those around them that want something from them. And then also, putting themselves first, because we can have more impact in the world, better for our families, be better in relationship when we invest in our own development and take time for ourselves, right? So, and that requires not just a feeling of self-worth, which many of us struggle with, but self-confidence to know that we can still be successful even if we do things not 100%, but some things 80%. My husband said to me throughout my career, your 80% is better than most people's 120, so dial it back. I would love to see a year where you don't get the best performance rating. Like, what are you trying to prove? What are you giving up by doing that? And I think we're not very good at asking ourselves, what's the trade-off I'm making by putting, this above, like giving all my energy to this priority. So again, it comes back to what we were saying before about intentionality, right? Understanding yourself, creating self-belief, knowing what you're good at, letting go the things, not, perfectionism, hyperachiever. These are all conditioned tendencies, protective tendencies we develop to make us successful, but they can hold us back. So when I work with people in coaching, we kind of work to understand what are those drivers in me that are limiting me or holding me back because I'm overusing them. And it's not about changing them. It's about creating a subject-object relationship to them so that I can see them. I'm not fused with them. I'm not identified with them as this is me, but I realize that's a part of me that I can use or I can not use. And I can choose, and I don't have to be triggered. I don't have to react with automatic response. I can choose more intentionally how I want to work with that. So that's why I really, really recommend to people to do this kind of work to understand yourself, because that's the kind of key to helping you, especially us women, to just see this with more awareness and to create more choice about how we balance all these competing priorities and desires in our life. Yeah.
And do you think human resources department in companies have a role also to play, not especially on with women, but
in general?
Yes, in general on this, because yes, in these days it's the WEF, World Economic Forum in Davos, and they talk about the future of HR to adapt. Of all the changes of jobs and of expectation from the people.
Yeah, certainly. I think the HR departments have a role to play in creating the framework for people to be able to utilize the resources, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the leadership programs or the access to coaching, or even simply the expectation management about what is possible, because many people I've spoken to recently feel like they're just getting more and more and more put on them, and that it's almost impossible to achieve the pressure, the stress, and leading to burnout, right? And I think that's where HR departments have a role to play in taking the human side of things and understanding what leads to burnout. How do we create a sustainable, productive environment for people to really bring their gifts in a way that ultimately unlocks value for the company, right, and society? And that's, I think, a role that we all are going to have to play to create workplaces that, in this crazy complex world, allow us to actually work, but do so in a way that brings us fulfillment, not suffering and more trauma. It's the last thing we need in our jobs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, we have so much possibilities. Technologies help so much that we can preserve at least our the core of our human resources.
Yeah, as long as we use it as a tool and not, become a slave to the technology or use it to just keep speeding up, right?
Yes, this is also,
That's a risk.
And I would like to talk about, you explained a bit, you talked a bit about yoga, and then now you are even a yoga teacher.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, what it brings to you.
Yeah.
Well,
so, and actually...
why are you doing this?
Why am I doing yoga?
Is there a link between, yoga and your, work performance too?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I guess the first thing to maybe point out about yoga is, for me, yoga is really a self-awareness, self-development practice. We often think about yoga as the postures, right? Like the physical practice of yoga, but there's actually 8 limbs of yoga, and it's really a philosophy of how we live. And so for me, this is really what's enabled me to create the stillness and the slowing down and the mind-body connection, to get out of my head and to be more, to tap into the intelligence that comes from the heart, the body, and to this is, I think, a big part of my resilience and sustainability, and this is what keeps me grounded, right? So, and I became a teacher mainly to learn more about this for me and to bring it to the world. And I don't teach in a yoga studio. What I do is I have retreats where I integrate yoga into my coaching and into nature, because I believe in the gift of being in nature is so conducive to doing this kind of slowing down, stilling, and self-reflection. So now I'm starting to do like weekend 3 days with groups, going into the mountains and doing some mindful walking, hiking, yoga, self-awareness work. And, we just touch the surface in 3 days. But for some, I think it helps open up the idea that, or the possibility that this could be a practice that can help them if they incorporate it into their life. So that's
it's about mindfulness and being present, being conscious about your antagonism, maybe.
It's like doing that work to go deep, to ask ourselves the journaling questions that we talked about earlier.
About, finding your North Star and
visioning. What do I want in my life? What is calling to let go in my life? What do I need more of? There's an exercise we do that is so simple, but yet I would encourage people, sit with the question of what is the quality that I need more of in my life right now? Maybe I need more curiosity. Maybe I need more patience. Maybe I need more stillness. And how do you let that seep into your whole body, right? So that's just an example of simple embodied practices that we do with yoga.
Okay, yes, because it's also a relation with the body. And it's maybe a world also where we just focus on the brain.
The brain.
Yes, and you also think you have a role to play to help the people to connect a bit and to just not live with the brain.
Exactly.
And because the brain means also rapidly the ego and
exactly
the others and
You've got it. You hit the nail on the head, huh? But it's getting out of only the mind. Our brain helps us in so many ways, right? Mental problem solving. But that's not the only way of knowing, and we overuse our minds, our brains. So I think, and we know that the mind is not just the brain, it's the whole. So it's about understanding how to tap into our intuition, how to use our emotions to guide us. The parts of us that have been around for a long time in evolution, right? That anyway.
Yes, okay. And it's also a way to, give confidence to your emotions or to your intuitions and to
trust them.
Yeah, to trust them, yeah.
Trust yourself more and to listen to that part of yourself that is trying to tell you something. But we always override it with our brain, right? Yeah, but you're right. That's it. It's trusting and being able to slow down enough to feel.
Okay.
To feel your body. Many of us, when I ask a coaching client, where do you feel that? What's the emotion you're feeling? They have very little emotional vocabulary to identify what they're feeling and where they feel it in their body. So that's something we have to work on, because emotions are data. Emotions can guide us, but we have to learn to slow down to feel them, to know what is it trying to tell me? Is it coming from a fear-based, scarcity-based mindset, or is it coming from a deeper creative knowing? These are things we can actually work with and discern, but we have to work with it and train it. Yeah.
And would you say, back afterwards, would you say this could have helped you in your corporate career?
Yes.
Like tons of times.
If only I knew now, or knew then what I knew now. Yeah, we always say that, right? Like, I would just say, in our 30s, this is not the first thing on our mind. Like sometimes, I talk to my 20-year-old kids and I say, bring up one of these points around, and they just laugh at me, because these phases of our life, we're not interested in hearing about slowing down and listening to our body. So I wish that we would teach this in schools, but we don't. But the earlier you can start working
Yeah.
with these kinds of concepts, the better, because in these practices, it's not so much concept, it's the work, the practice, because it's life-changing, it's transformative, really.
Yeah, I don't see that as a, or I think it's a you can go fast and make this kind of work, because it helps you also to have, get resilience and go sometimes fast and sometimes slow. And
yeah, that's right. I think we often say we don't have time. I'm guilty of that all the time. I don't have time to meditate my 3 minutes this morning. Well, actually, if you don't have time, then you need it even more than when you have time. And so overriding the brain and saying, no, I'm taking my 3 minutes will help you to then become so much more productive the rest of your day. It's true.
Okay, can you share a bit about your daily routine?
My daily routine?
Yes.
So I'm not one of these people that has a discipline, wake up at 5 and do this at 6. That's
morning miracle.
That's not me. But one of the things that's so beautiful about my new morning routine, since I went into my own coaching practice, is that I protect my mornings so that I can do, when I wake up in the morning, I can do my yoga and my meditation. And some days that is a 30-minute practice, 3 minutes of meditation, a little bit of yoga. Other days, if my calendar is free, I can extend that to an hour and a half, right? And then I do a little bit of journaling, just whatever came up in my meditation. I write down a few words. I also look at my photos and pick a picture from the day before that really stood out to me, that captures the moment of what I'm grateful for, So I try to also bring some mindfulness to what are the wonderful things in my life that I could easily gloss over.
Yeah.
So I do a little of that, and then I look at my agenda, my focus time. I look at what are the important things that I want to get done that day, so that I don't get sucked into the vortex of reactivity.
Yes.
And then the other thing that's important to me in my day is that I always carve out 1 hour sometime in the lunch time for a walk, to get out into nature, because I can't possibly make it through the afternoon if I don't do that. That's pretty much, those are the main things in my day. And then in the evening, I always have like a short wind down, because I tend to generally be a pretty active, intense person, which is why yoga has helped me so much. So I'll usually do a short wind down, grounding practice in the evening to bring me back to kind of earth after a busy day.
And do you think if you had made this earlier in your career, you should have made different transitions, or maybe earlier transitions, or?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know. I definitely would say I would have become more intentional and less fear-based in my decisions earlier. I spent probably a longer time than I needed to worrying about what others thought of me and doing things that, I used the word should earlier in my life, and I think I would have stopped doing things I should do. I have taken that out of my vocabulary now. I think there's an expression, we should all over ourselves, right? I should do this, I should do that. This is all conditioning.
Yeah.
And so I think I would have seen that more clearly earlier and would have let some of that go. And maybe that would have led to different choices. But, I believe in looking back and learning, but I don't think I have regrets about. Every experience I had throughout my career gave me some beautiful thing. Even if I just think about the people I got to work with,
why you're here.
right? And I think that's such an important thing, is who you work with, the company you keep, right? And we didn't talk about that a lot, but I also use that in my decision making about my criteria. I mentioned in the beginning that I developed more principles over, and one of them was who's the leader I'm going to work with? Who are the people I'm going to work with? And I think if I look back on I might have gone a direction that wasn't for me, but I have a network of so many interesting people from all over the world, and people many I call friends, and that I think I never have any regrets about that.
Yes, it's not about regrets. It's about alignment and exploration.
Yeah, but I've explored something different. Yeah,
yes. But you were lucky enough to
But then we could spend our whole life going, I could have done this. I could.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so that's also.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to understand is. No, you don't feel bored when you're in the same place for a long time, but you can. Yes, you can push yourself to explore something different because there's so much to discover and so much to bring somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but that also has, it's like everything. It's all polarities, right?
Yes.
So what I mean by that is
focus
everything can be taken to an extreme. Like, I talked a lot during our discussion today about trying new things all the time. But that's also had its downsides because I'm very restless, right? I do something 2 years and then I want to do something else. And, I probably would have learned earlier not to be so restless and to stay longer in one place and to just enjoy instead of having that FOMO of what's the next thing and the next thing. And that's something, you're right, I think I would have made different decisions about how frequently I moved. If you ask my children and my husband, they would say we moved way too many times. And I look back a little bit and I think, was that necessarily, I think
for
children
you it was, yes, you needed it.
Yes. And I think children are resilient and grow from that, but there can be, you can get to the point where it's too much, right? Especially when kids are teenagers, right? And then I started, it's actually a really important point. I made different decisions. One of the reasons I decided to take the head of HR role was because it was based in Basel and it wouldn't have required a move. And that was important too to me, right? Because my kids were then in high school and they said, please, can we not move until we graduate?
Okay.
So I think we have to, when I talk about we have to make our decisions holistically, looking at our whole life and with all the roles we play. That's also a consideration, right? And being really honest with ourselves about what's best for us, what's best for our family, right?
Okay.
Those are all, there's no good, easy answers to these things, but we have to.
Yes. I think the only idea is to be happy in, what you do and get, have excitement in your daily life,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and you were talking about what you bring to the family and to your peers, and it helps me to go to the last section. I would like to talk about the pharma industry, and if you look back at this conversation and what you've learned and how you help people today, how do you see the pharma industry today? You talked about lots of reorganizations and maybe how people can deal with it, how people can be happy in this.
It's a great question too. Well, I mean, I think you said it. It's changed so much in the last years, right? And I think it's really, if we go back to our discussion about yoga, this is a lesson of impermanence, right?
Yes.
We learn that life is full of things that are impermanent and that we have to, not have to, that's the wrong word. If we grasp onto things really tightly, that we want to stay the way they were, we suffer as a result. So I think the first thing I would say about it is we have to embrace the fact that this is how it is now. It's disrupted. It's going to keep being disrupted. Organizations are trying to figure out how they can respond to this very different world.
Okay, between the limits between keep fighting, and okay.
If you want to fight against it, you just create more resistance. Yeah. So we have to accept that this is the reality. And also see all the possibilities in that. Because even if you just take one example of how artificial intelligence can enable innovation to reach patients faster, this is a huge opportunity. But it also creates a lot of anxiety in people because all the jobs change, right? Even just what it means to be a scientist is changing.
In 12 years, in 12 months, the technology completely changes.
Right? So we have to, I think, again, it goes back to our conversation around we have to be willing to reinvent ourselves to be relevant in this world. We have to be more open to like exploring how can I take my skill sets and gifts and things into new areas. We have to have a long-term vision of where we're trying to go, but be much more open to exploring different ways and learning new things, right? And this meta skill set or capacity.
Yeah, and do and learn by,
of seeing things and then going, okay, where's the opportunity in me for this? Not looking at everything like, oh, I'm the victim. This is being done to me. Another restructuring.
I want to fight. I want
to fight against. Or put my head under the duvet, and just hide. But and that's a natural human tendency too. But we have to see it as that's just our protection kicking in again. The ego wants to, and working with it. Work with it and say, okay, so here's what it is.
Yes.
Let's first of all feel the emotion of it's unsettling, it's difficult. But for leaders, I think one, you need to understand that that's what your people are going through. So create more space for helping people to digest this and deal with this. Again, recognize that driving performance doesn't mean just sitting there with KPIs and, metrics, but it means also creating space for reflection and learning and supporting people to digest this constant change. Again, find the places where we can still have the impact that brought us to this to begin with, right? Most of us came to Pharma because we want to have this positive impact on the world and help patients. And there's still so many opportunities to do that. So keep coming back to ways that you can find your meaning and purpose and a new iteration of that in a new role in a different way.
Yes, and I was also thinking about the image of the industry.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, which is something which is sometimes seen as non-transparent and with a lot of protections and with a lot of like a black box. And maybe it's also a way to to have leaders who accept also to change and who accept to deal with the real world. It's also a way to be more, I don't know, close to the public or close to the...
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the days are over, right? Because with social media and information is everywhere all the time, right? So this idea that we can somehow work in this black box, I think, is over, right? It's much more transparent. But I think in general, that's probably a good thing, right? Makes our job harder because the bar is raised.
Yes.
But that's good because it should be raised, right? We, I think in Pharma, have a responsibility in what we do to be open, transparent, to put our resources to good use, to be efficient with what we do, right? So that we can get the most innovation for patients out of it. So, that's, again, it's another example of how the world is changing, and it's not about wishing it were the way it used to be, but
no, it's
figuring out how to work with it.
Yeah, it's not about stepping back, but
moving forward.
Yes, moving forward and being fully conscious about the reality and where we can have much more impact and
I fully agree.
And be present. Yes, maybe. Yes, I'm curious about your vision about how the industry can evolve. Yes, in the next decade to better serve humanity. What do you think?
So
If
I'm probably
we can focus on we can focus on people if you want.
yeah. I was going to say I'm probably not the best person to answer that question from a whole perspective, but I do think that from where I sit in the leaders, so I'm working with a lot of senior leaders that are going through transitions into new roles, right? And so I do get a front row seat to see what are people paying attention to now, right? What are they looking for in the future? And I think it comes back to the themes around learning to be much, much more agile, right? The many layers we had and departments, and these days are completely in the past. So horizontal collaboration and having much more connectivity end to end from research all the way through to market. You know, how we actually collaborate to ensure that for example, to make sure that the needs in terms of the evidence that we need in the market are communicated all the way through back to early discovery. It's again about how do we use technology to get much, much better at speeding innovation from the early phases to the market. So not the perfectionism and we are very scientific and perfectionistic. I think where I see the industry going is that from a people perspective, is that leaders are going to have to keep helping their teams to create the psychological safety. I know that's an overused word, but to create the culture where, again, people can experiment, try, fail, and more rapidly get this innovation to patients because it just takes us way, way too long. We're too slow, we're too heavy, we're too bureaucratic, and I think that has to really change.
Yes.
But it's an opportunity for people because we'll be able to have more impact, right? It won't take 10 years to see something you did reach the market. We'll be able to bring more of our creativity into the space of innovation so that we can we can be less process oriented and more fluid and playful and joyful in how we do our work. That would be my dream is,
yes.
And it also unlocks just more human potential when we have environments like that.
Yes.
It's my dream, but let's see if it really happens because there are these countervailing, what do you call it? There's a polarity again. There's this other side that's people are afraid. They're, focusing more on performance and metrics and thinking that like the old way that you can address this with a playbook. We can't do it that way anymore. It's an illusion to think we can just apply a playbook and that will have like a great launch. That doesn't happen anymore because the world is.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Thank you for this long conversation and really deep. And I would like maybe you to share one advice for pharma professional.
Something I haven't said, or
something you don't know. Something maybe the things you consider as the most important for them from your seat.
Yeah, I think. We've said it a number of times during this discussion, but take the time to really slow down and get to know yourself and ask yourself, what do I really want? Not in 20 years, but what do I want now? What are the principles by which I'm going to make my decisions? What are my values? What am I good at? And really be guided by that. And think about yourself and how you can bring your gifts to the world in a way that has the impact that you imagine, that's important to you.
Unlock your gift.
Unlock your gifts in service of something that's meaningful, and the rest will follow if you keep that as your central tenet, your central focus.
Thank you, Margaret.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the chance to have this conversation. I didn't realize all these things I had inside me, that I didn't even know I was going to say. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you will inspire, many leaders and professionals in this
I hope so.
industry. And thank you for your wisdom. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. It was great to share this story about connection, inspiration, and creating a positive legacy. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on future episodes, and talk to you soon. À bientôt.